Radio in motion. Program loading in 3, 2, 1. Program activated.
Attention everyone, the unpleasant noise you are about to hear coming from your radio is not a mistake.
Okay, first things first, what is your name?
This is Big Sonny playing the best of the 90s and beyond.
Are you ready for this?
Yeah. Radio in motion.
Please do not turn off your radio, but turn up the volume on your receiver as high as it can go.
All right, ready? Here we go.
Radio in motion.
All right, thanks for joining me tonight on Radio in Motion. And now we're going to have another episode of The Ugly Truth. And the ugly truth is you only get one life, and it's not a dress rehearsal. And I don't mean that to sound stressful. I mean that in an honest way. Like I said before, I'm someone who really enjoys open discourse about any subject under the sun. The old adage, never talk politics or religion. Well, sometimes those are the most fun, let me tell you. But frankly, anything, I think, if especially when everyone always says, but I don't think they believe it or know how to do it. They want to solve the world's problems. Well, that usually starts with a conversation, and a conversation where both parties have to remain calm, because I tell you, everyone is so easily triggered these days. And like I said, I like any subject. If it is a subject that is, genuinely upsetting someone, of course I'm not going to talk about it. But in general, whether it's, pop culture or movies, it doesn't have to be religion and politics. People can argue over a movie and cancel each other. So, that's why I'm just going to talk about the subject of life, and that you only get one. And I'm going to delve into a few things. One of them will involve a movie. There's a really funny movie, one of my favorites from the 80s, called Defending Your Life. I'll talk about that in a bit. And it sort of, dives into the idea of no matter what you believe, it doesn't have to be religious. It just is about whatever you believe happens next. I'm sure even the most dyed-in-the-wool atheist believes something happens. And Defending Your Life has a funny spin on that, in that you actually, you have to defend your life. And we'll talk about that in a bit. But, what I want to talk about is a lot of times we talk about, going back and doing it over. What would you fix? And I've often thought of this and talked about this. Sometimes joking, but if you really think about it, something about wanting to go back and right any wrongs or fix your mistakes. First of all, Marty McFly from Back to the Future will tell you, and Doc Brown, this is a mistake, okay? Marty, don't do it. If you make changes, it'll just skew the timeline. That was my bad Dr. Emmett Brown. But it's true. I believe that as well. Whether we're talking about the often mistaken and wrong science of movies, but take any time travel movie, Terminator, whatever movie that has time travel in it, and especially if it has something about going back in time, and it's about making changes to your life because you have the wisdom now, the foresight of the future. And I will be honest, I don't think it would work. I think it would cause problems. You can't do that. That's not what it's about. We've all had those fantasies, the idea of undoing your mistakes, and the fantasy is seductive because it also removes accountability. It lets us imagine a life where everything goes right. But that's not how it works. Life is a risk and real mistakes and learning from that. It's a fantasy to think you can go back and everything's just perfect. I don't think that's the point, and I think that's why I think whatever even science fiction books that delve into that, they usually come to the same conclusion that if you were to go back on your own timeline in your life, the changes that you make, they are going to end up with unknowns that are possibly worse. I'm not saying always. You might right or wrong. You might save someone's life. And again, We could go with The Butterfly Effect too, another great movie and theory in general. The smallest change. You may save someone's life. Maybe they were important to you. I hear that. And again, I'm mixing a bit of reality with fantasy. If you could actually do that, let's say you actually went back and you did something that served you, or even it was a selfless act to save someone in your life, friend or family, whatever, and you did that. You have to realize we do live in a world where the tiniest things, we all affect each other. And it is very possible that by doing that, maybe for whatever reason, you think, oh, that why would God or whatever being, whatever deity you believe in, why would they do that? Why would they make it so that I saved this person's life and that had a knock-on effect and like maybe killed a whole carload of people? I'm just saying the world's random nature works like that. There are certain things that, whether you want to use something like Destiny or all the horror movies where it's all about, that you can't escape death. What I'm saying is you never know. And you can't know that by going back and saying, I'll fix this one thing. And again, it could turn out worse. You have no idea. So again, even if that were possible, I think it would turn out bad. Plus, that's not the point of life. You've gone back and you've lived your life in an unreality, in an unrealistic way. And then there's another idea. You could say an alternate reality. Even let's say something like virtual reality, AI. We're getting close. 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, still in the realm of fantasy. But let's say you get close enough that you can live a complete alternate life simulation. And now you can laugh at that one, but that one, unless, Tony Stark or Doc Brown invents time travel, that one's actually possibly more plausible. An alternate life. So imagine you could do that. And then, it's like testing out different endings to a video game. You could finally say yes to those risks, to the passions, to the people you turned away. You could make decisions without fear. And I'll get into that in a minute too. That's an important one. I'm going to encourage you to do that. But I'm not going to encourage you to live in a fantasy, even if it's in your mind. And we all do that. We all do that. That's how I got to these kind of subjects. I do that myself. But let's say, again, you actually get to the point where you're able to decide, I'm going to do it. I'm going to live this virtual fantasy. Let's say you're a millionaire and you could pay all the money in the world. And it's like The Matrix. I'm sure you've seen The Matrix. If you haven't, I can't help you. Go see The Matrix. Half the time I think we're in The Matrix. If you couldn't differentiate your actual life from being in The Matrix, then you wouldn't know. And then you think to yourself, why would I care? If I could just stay in The Matrix, and this, by the way, this question is posed in the movie, The Matrix, as in, I would rather live the fantasy. Just keep me asleep. The perfect simulation. At that point, I'll be honest, it actually becomes a cruel mirror. That's the problem. It's reflecting everything that you've denied yourself, everything that's not possible because you were afraid to do it. But you're living this virtual fantasy where you think you're invincible. By the way, you're not. I didn't say that you're going into it and you're now Superman. That's different. That's a whole different scenario. If you're going to choose to live your life as a different person and not you. Again, that's probably going to be possible. But that's different. That's unrealistic from the start. You want to be Superman or Batman or whatever, that's fine. You're going into it knowing that's not you. I hope you realize that. And if you want to live that life, then live it. But if you go into it just living you and you think, now I'm going to live my life. You know what you've done to yourself? Think about how that would eat away at you, especially if, let's say, the virtual fantasy ends. Well, whatever. Maybe the server crashes. Maybe you run out of money. For whatever reason, anything like that, I wouldn't say is something that is sustainable. So your perfect virtual life ends because you lived it without fear. And now where are you? Now you're back where you started in your actual life. You know what? That's going to tear you apart. That's going to make you sick. You know, if you are any normal person, because you will now realize what you have missed out in your actual life and what you could have done. So what was the point? Now, I dare say if it was about a lessons learned, then by all means, if you were able to come back and say, oh, you know what? Based on how I lived there, I'm going to start living life like that. That's okay. That's fine. You've learned something. It took something extreme to do it, but you've come back knowing, I did it there. Why can't I do it here? Because there's consequences. By the way, before we get too deep, because I'm like this, it's all about the details. If you're in the Matrix, can you die? Yes, I'm going with, if you live in the virtual reality that we're talking about, the fact is you can actually die there too. So the consequences are the same. So my point is you might as well live that in your real life. And not every chance has to be life-threatening, but I'm just saying, if that's the only thing you're worried about, or maybe you've done a lot of bad things and you're worried about going to hell or something, that's your own problem. But my point is why not just live it in your real life? So here's the reality check, though, from that. You don't need a simulation. The truth is, every moment is a pivot point. You don't have to be Marty McFly. You don't have to get in the DeLorean and go back and screw up your parents' life and your life by making one mistake, by making your mom fall in love with you. Oh, awkward. Anyway, that's Back to the Future. But, you know, right now, wherever you're listening from, your car, your couch, your bed, you're alive right now. And I don't care how old you are. Now, if you are older and you're retired and you're happy and you're just looking back, that's amazing. But I dare say, even with someone who's looking back at their life, and they have more than likely made good and bad choices, use those life lessons for the better, use their wisdom, I still think there's always time to learn something new, to experience something new, or I dare say to help someone else. If anything, and yeah, maybe it is because I'm getting older, I do believe this. We are here at least once we sort ourselves out, and I hope we do. And if we don't, that's probably the problem. You haven't sorted yourself out. But if you have, I do think it's part of what the point of our life is. The point of life in general is to help pass that on to someone else. So if you're younger, listen to the older and wiser generation, whether you think that they don't know anything and you know everything. And for the older and wiser generation, take a moment and just forgive the younger ones because you used to be them. Remember when you had all the answers. And you're designed like that. It's okay. You're designed to have that energy. But I think it's when we come together, that's when amazing things happen. So whether you're young or old, there's always a pivot point. You can make that choice. You can choose that new timeline. And it's the power of small shifts. One phone call, one yes, one apology, one risk. Those are the moments that become a new life. And if you think this is all crap, that's fine. Like I always tell you, don't listen to me. Figure these things out for yourself. Research it for yourself. Find out for yourself. If I helped you to get there, though, because you stopped and listened, well, that's a good thing. Look, and I have to talk about this. I have to talk about, the idea of the afterlife, because it's going to roll into the movie I want to talk about, Defending Your Life, which is about what happens next. So whether you're religious, spiritual, or skeptical, I do believe there's a shared human curiosity. Again, even a dyed-in-the-wool atheist, I don't believe, that's fine. If you tell me that you believe, you just go to sleep and it ends, that's fine. But I still think somewhere deep down, you have a curiosity about what comes next. But too often I think, and yeah, you could say I was brought up Catholic, but it doesn't matter if you were brought up with any religion. I think you would have a natural curiosity. But being Catholic, of course, I was inundated with all the images of what heaven or the afterlife looked like. And I used to make fun of this when I was a kid. I feel like it just looks like a waiting room for relief. Everyone's just sitting around like, yeah, I made it. I don't know, you're sitting there in a robe playing a harp. Yeah, I get it. You're reunited with your friends and family, but I don't want to be mean. That lasts for about 5 minutes. You catch up, you're like, all right, now I got to talk to you for the eternity. What I'm saying is, I think there's more to it than the next step is just you've earned the right to sit around and sit on a cloud and just chill. I think that's boring. I think there's something else about motivation for more responsibility to take the next step. Again, this is my opinion. You think about what you think it is, but heaven isn't escapism. It's not this painting of just ethereal, oh, I'm going to float around. I think it's actually about a next chapter. Never think that our evolution is done. If you think you're the top of the evolution chain, I don't want to burst your bubble, but the amount of brain power we use is so small, I'm pretty sure other beings in the universe laugh at us. My point is we're all capable of more. So I think it's about the next chapter. I think it's about earning your way in, and you earn that by how we live this one. No, I'm not going to get deep. If someone's like, oh, well, there's religions that believe in past lifetimes and multiple lives. Yes, I'm saying it's all possible. I'm not challenging one or bringing up one. I'm saying just based on a logic continuity, I feel like a little bit of all the religions do make sense. The idea of a soul's evolution implies that we're here to learn, to stretch, and like I said, to serve. We're here to take what we've learned and help others grow as well. And, so instead of sort of asking, do I get to go to heaven? Ask, am I living in a way that makes me ready for what comes next? Now, if that's too deep, then look, I'll make it a bit lighter by talking about that movie I wanted to talk about up next. But I do think your afterlife isn't necessarily a reward. It's a reflection. Would you really be ready for what comes next? The next step in our evolution that might not even be a human body. Again, I'm sure everyone could go on and on about, oh, well, you're saying this and this has already been written. It probably has. That's the other thing too. I don't want to get too deep into this, but I think about every story that's ever written, and no, not just the ones turned into movies, everything that's been written, everything, especially fictional. I think it's amazing. Where does that all come from? Imagination. Where is that? Where does that all come from? My point is, it's amazing that the amount of ideas and fantasies and worlds and visions of humanity and not humanity in other worlds, just everything ever written. I think this is my cheesy one I'm going to interject. I think what that is anything that we can, will, or have ever imagined, and what will be imagined, that's being imagined right now by young kids that we can't even think of. You think you had every imaginary, animal under the bed and creature and mystical thing, every imaginary creature. There's a million more being thought up right now. That's just one aspect of human imagination. But what I'm saying is all of that is everything that we are capable of and everything that's possible. All right, that's probably a bit too deep, but just think about that. Everything that we're writing or can write that comes from our imagination means somewhere in the universe that we don't even know yet is actually possibly possible. So if you think heaven is just this waiting room of clouds and playing a harp, that's one. And that might be one. That might be one. And that might be it. But what if it's something more? What if it's the next step and another new journey? And if you're like, you're 95, you're like, I'm tired. I don't want another journey. maybe when you get there, you won't be tired. Imagine that. So now I'm going to talk about this movie, and this ties into a lot of what we're talking about. It's called Defending Your Life, one of my favorite movies, 1991, Albert Brooks. He's fantastic. So essentially, in Defending Your Life, his character, Daniel, played by Albert Brooks, look, I have to give you spoilers because that's the point, but it's still very watchable. Even if I give you some spoilers, you'll want to watch it, trust me. He dies at the start. All right, sorry, I spoiled it. Anyway, he dies in a car accident, but instead of going to heaven or hell, which is the traditional way we think of, he ends up at a place called Judgment City. Now, a lot of you might also think, oh, well, that's purgatory. That's the middle place. It wasn't that depressing, but the funny thing about it, it's called Judgment City because it's actually a city like it is on Earth with trams, and people are just on the trams going to their hotel, and essentially the whole place is a sort of bureaucratic limbo where the souls are judged. Yes, there's actually a lawyer and a judge to determine whether they can move forward into the universe, whether they are ready. And yes, I will say smart enough, and it does tie into that a bit. Not so much smart enough, but brave enough. How did you live your life with or without fear? And this is where I'll talk about fear. It's like a cloud. So it's about whether you move forward or return to earth. So yes, you could say this ties into the belief of multiple lives and past lives. But I dare say the concept here with past lives is they talk about, he asks his lawyer, so have I been on earth multiple times? He says yes. He goes, really? Obviously, you don't remember your past lives. And he asks him, how many times? And I think he says like 100 something or maybe more, 150 or something. And he's like, is that a lot? He's all, that's not bad. He goes, well, how many times have people gone back? He says, there's people who have gone back thousands of times. You wouldn't want to know them. The point is think about that. If you do believe in past lives, I'll be honest, if this particular life, I'm not going to deny that Earth is a beautiful place, and I certainly would like to stay here as long as I can. But if this were about a test, and this were just stage one, and there were things beyond your imagination elsewhere, if you came back here thousands of times, it's very possible you're just not getting it, okay? Because you're coming back because they're still putting you on trial to see how you live your life. So it's not necessarily something you should be proud of. So that's why he says, I wouldn't want to know them. It's a bit harsh. So again, sorry, another spoiler. So essentially, yeah, you're on trial for your life, and you have to sit in what looks like a courtroom. There's a judge, and they're essentially playing back snippets of your life. Some of you are probably like, oh, Jesus, you're getting stressed. Imagine that. Imagine if you went to heaven and you were to sit down and be judged on elements of your life. It's possible. So he meets someone in heaven, played by Meryl Streep. Her name's Julia. And this is the difference here. So this woman actually died leaving a family behind, a husband and children. Again, I have to talk spoilers because you really need to understand this. Now, when they're sitting and watching her life, the episodes of her life are scenes of her saving her kids from a fire or her just doing amazing things. Now, not everything is about you have to save someone's life, but it just showed that her life was full of bravery and taking chances and living life to the fullest without fear. And whereas when they show Daniel's life, he's not evil. This isn't about good or bad, but he's not lazy either. He's just cautious to the point of being scared. Again, we're all cautious. I'm not saying not to be cautious. Look both ways before you cross the street. This is about those moments in life when you should have said yes. You should have taken a chance. Whatever, maybe you were going to spend some money on a friend who had a deal in the stock market and he invented some device and you weren't sure. Again, you're like, oh, so it's about money? No, it's not about money. It's about taking a chance. Maybe you took that one chance, and then your life was a little bit more stable, and then maybe you, because of that, you met your wife, you had kids, you had a beautiful life. I'm just saying, it's all the little butterfly effect. You never know, and they usually are better when you take a chance and you say yes. So his life was more, let's say, mundane. And by the end, I've already spoiled a bit of it. By the end, he makes a final decision while he's there that reflects that he has actually grown, and he showed the bravery that he's capable of. So my point is essentially they were more than likely going to send him back, even though again he lived his life fine. He didn't hurt anybody, didn't kill anybody. Again, that's extreme. If you've murdered someone, that's different. I'm not there to judge you if you've murdered someone. If you've lived a mundane life and you didn't learn anything, that's a different sort of judgment. So, again, the deeper takeaway, the movie isn't really about religion. It's about courage. Not the loud, Superman kind, but the quiet daily courage. Speak the truth, risk failure, to love deeply. The kind of things that, again, fear. And they talk about this in the movie. His lawyer actually talks about it, saying, look, I'm going to give you some tips. You probably won't remember them, but if you end up going back, I'm going to tell you these anyway. Fear. It's like a cloud. It's like a virus. It just consumes your brain, and it infects every decision. And again, I'm not talking fight or flight. I'm not talking about that kind of fear. I'm not talking about life-threatening decision to run away from someone with a gun. I'm talking about those decisions where you're unsure of yourself, and you have to find that bravery in yourself. So again, I think defending your life really touches on something that isn't really spoken about these days, in that what if that next step is about looking back at your life and deciding, are you a strong soul to move forward? And again, I'm not saying I am or you're not. I'm just saying we all can stop and think about maybe what opportunities we can take that day, or right now, or tonight, or tomorrow morning, that can break past that fear even a little bit. So again, and it's not just about you. I guess I'm talking a lot about self-improvement, but self-improvement matters. But I think growth without compassion is incomplete. You're not alone here. Every time you show up for someone else, you rise a bit. Every time you lift someone, you rise. Every act of sacrifice and kindness, it counts. And that can be your bravery. That can be something. If you think you've made the decisions for your life and you are content, I'm not going to say you're not. You possibly are. That's awesome. I hope to get there. I think then it's time for you to sort of earn your evolution, and not by overcoming your fear, because you've done that. And again, half the people listening are like, I've overcome my fear. I have taken those chances. I have lived that life like Julia in the movie. I am the one that's going to be judged up there as, wow, you've done all right. Then that's fine. Then it's your job to become useful. I'm sorry, I do believe that. It's your job to show others how. What can I say? Help someone else then. All right. So my final reflection from a very deep show is, what are you waiting for? Don't wait for the virtual reality matrix. Don't wait to plug into a video game and live a fake life. Time's not your enemy. It's your currency. Okay? You're spending it right now, listening to me. Of course you are, because this show's awesome. But there's no someday coming to save you. There's only this day, this moment. This breath, tell the person, start that project, move your body, break the silence. I know these are all cheesy motivation things. I hear them all the time. Well, it's because they're not wrong. Whether you take them with a grain of salt or not, that's up to you. But you're the only one who can create your real alternate timeline. Don't make an alternate timeline. Make it this timeline. not the fantasy one. So yeah, like I say, this life is not a dress rehearsal. You don't need another lifetime. You don't need a simulation. And it doesn't need to be perfect. You're not going to be perfect. All you're going to do is be a little bit better next time. And then when you got that one sorted, maybe you'll notice someone else is hopeless and you can try to help them. And you can just be a little braver than yesterday. Because yeah, this is it. What can I say? Make it count. All right. Hope you enjoyed that. Be sure to stay tuned tonight for some more great tunes on our Back to the 90s episode of Radio in Motion. We'll be right back after a word from our awesome sponsors that keep this mic humming.